Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by former world middleweight champion and now a top trainer and pundit, Andy Lee. The intro gets longer every time. It's just a mark of your accomplishment.
Don't forget coach, A-star referee. No.
Yeah, maybe not in Saudi this weekend, but yeah. Let's go through some of the elements of Saturday night's card before we talk a bit more about yourself and your own career. Mouth-watering main event. A lot of people categorizing it as a boxer against more of a brawler. Is that oversimplifying the fight?
Well, yeah, but in general terms, that's what it is. Not a brawler, but it's a devastating, skilled, aggressive fighter, and it's an elegant, classical boxer who is hugely skilled himself as well in Bivol. So, it's a classic matchup. You know, a guy who boxes and uses finesse against a guy who uses force and power.
Who do you feel out of the two is going to have to adapt their style more for their opponent?
Bivol, not adapt his style, but do a lot more will be Bivol. Beterbiev doesn't really have to adjust. You know, I think if he can do what he does well, it'll be enough to win probably. He's got a very heavy jab, good slip right hand, a good sneaky right hand lead, and he's very dangerous when he gets you onto the ropes. He's very dangerous with hooks. Bivol will have to use a very nuanced strategy and tactics to be successful in terms of he can't concede too much ground, and that's the hardest thing against Beterbiev, because he will look to push you back. So you're going to have to hold your feet, feint, make him attack, and then drift off, and then counter-attack again. So it's very much a chess match for Bivol. And I don't think he can use attack. Like against Canelo Alvarez, he took a lot of the punches on the forearms, shoulders, and elbows. And he would probably have to do that at some stage, or at times with Beterbiev to deflect the punches. But it could be dangerous against Beterbiev because he's such a big puncher that one could get through, or could end up hurting your arm and disabling it from punching.
Do you think Beterbiev is more of a consistent worker in the ring than Canelo? Canelo obviously fights in spurts a lot of the time. Beterbiev, in terms of using his feet and cutting the ring off, will that be more of a challenge for Bivol?
The difference between it is that Canelo doesn't always look to counterpunch when you're punching. He'd close up and Bivol would have, you know, a moment of free punching, whereas Beterbiev will look to counter. He'll slip, come back with the right hand, or slip and come back with left hook. So Bivol will have to be, you know, cautious and unpredictable with his punching, because even though Bivol has the edge in speed, probably in hand speed, Beterbiev has great timing, and he looks to punch at the same time as his opponents, and yeah, that's what he looked to do. He looked to throw the right hand over the jab, looked to throw the left hook inside. It's an intriguing contest, and like both of them said, they don't know themselves who's going to win. They both hope they can win, they both believe they can win, but no one truly knows until they're in there.
I'll ask you about a couple of the fighters on the undercard. You've got Chris Eubank Jr. Coming back after a long period of inactivity. His opponent choice in this one has drawn a bit of criticism, it's fair to say. What do you think people are missing about Kamil Szeremeta?
He's a decent operator, but he's nothing spectacular. He's a good European style, Polish style, European level fighter. I think he's fought Golovkin, he's fought Munguia, and been unsuccessful. But he's a good solid operator. But it is a good showcase for Eubank. He should look good against him, and he should, you know, it will last a few rounds, I think, and it'll give him a good opportunity to put himself in the window for all these big fights that are being talked about for Eubank. That's all I think. I don't see. I find it very hard to see Szeremeta upsetting Eubank or surprising him. And I think it's a good showcase for Eubank.
And then you've got Ben Whitaker as well, probably having his toughest test to date. Have you seen much of Ben up close, given he's worked a lot with Sugar Hill?
See a lot of him. And I was never really in camp with him. I met him a few times with Sugar. I met him in New York with Sugar. Um, but I've been hugely impressed with him. Whitaker. I think he's the real deal. Beside and behind all the showmanship and flash stuff, he can really fight. And again, like Cameron, I don't really know much about his backstory, but I've heard some of the stuff about it. But in terms of the ring, it's a good showcase of Whitaker. It's going to be a good show. If I was Cameron, I wouldn't engage at all. I'd try to frustrate Whitaker, move, make it a dull fight, and frustrate Whitaker. Because the moment you go to Whitaker or try to press the fight is the moment you fall into his trap, leave yourself open. So if I was Cameron, I'd try to be a spoiler and make it a dull fight. But yeah, he is the real deal. I think Whitaker. I think he's the future, one of the future stars of boxing.
Let's go more to your career. Spoke to Gilles Zhang through a translator, of course, late last week. And he said now is the right time, in his view, to activate the rematch option against your man, Joseph Parker. Is that music to your ears?
We just want to fight anybody, really. So yeah, we'd have no problem fighting Zhang again. It was a close fight the first time. Joe was a clear winner, but there were some close and some sticky moments, 2 knockdowns. Joe survived. But yeah, and I believe Zhang will be better in the rematch. He'll probably be more aggressive. But he's also another year older and more miles on the clock. So we'll happily fight him again. If we don't get a fight at Dubois, then we'll happily fight Zhang again.
I mean, given Joseph's run of form, are you at all frustrated that he hasn't had a Joshua or a world title fight yet?
It's just that the moment that the titles are tied up a little bit with obviously Usyk and Tyson having the brunt of them, and now the IBF coming available, and Herkovich and Dubois having that position, they got to fight for it, and now Joshua's got to fight for it, and he'll probably get a rematch for it. So they're going to be tied up again. So we will fight the next whatever's up. Joseph is ready to fight anybody, really. He's shown in the past he's ready to fight anybody and will take any fight that's put in front of him.
And you mentioned Fury Usyk, the rematch is in December. Just harkening back to the first fight, I'm sure this is not the first time even today you've been asked about this, but there was a bit of criticism post-fight about the corner dynamic. I'm sure you've seen it. What was your reaction to that criticism?
It's the nature of not just sport but the world that when things go wrong you get criticised and people look. But I don't think there's anything wrong in the corner. Maybe there were too many voices, but that was only in that moment because it's gone into the last round of the heavyweight title fight. Tyson has been hurt, and you got his dad who's there, and he's looking after his son. But what he was saying, the actual instructions, if you listen to what he was saying, they weren't wrong. He was saying, lighten your punches up, keep side on, let your hands go. Double jab, right hand to the chest. There's nothing wrong with those instructions. They're all good instructions, and they would have worked. Then you've got Sugar, who's usually the only voice in the corner, and for most of the fight, he was the only voice in the corner. And he's saying things to Tyson where they know and recognize. They know what they're saying to each other because they have a shorthand speech of phrases that they use doing pads and doing sparring. And my input was in round 11, where I was told that Tyson's 2 rounds down and he needs to win the last 2 rounds. So I had to convey that to Tyson. So that was my input. So that, like, you saw the criticism of Ben Davidson when Joshua went for the uppercut. But had Joshua landed the uppercut and won by knockout, then Davidson's a genius. But because he got knocked out from an uppercut, all of a sudden Ben doesn't know what he's talking about. So these are the things that happen. Take it with a pinch of salt, because one day you're the cream of the crop, you're the best trainer in boxing. The next day you're a bum and you don't know what you're talking about. So that's just the nature of the world today.
So in terms of the way the corner works between the three of you, will that remain largely the same for the rematch?
I don't. Yeah, my role won't change. What the others do, I don't know. I don't think it's really been spoken about yet. But Sugar's the main trainer. Sugar's the only one who trains Tyson. Even though I'm there, I only give him water, give the odd bit of a, well done, or keep your right hand up. But Sugar's the trainer. Sugar's responsible for the great results and the bad result. But also, uh, his dad is there, and listen, his dad has his place because his dad's raised him from a child. So I'm not going to say nothing about that.
And I caught the tail end of your previous interview where you were talking about where the fight turned for Tyson last time. And I've said for a long time since the first fight, it seemed like he became complacent after enjoying that success in the middle rounds. He did seem very much in control. And I don't want to take anything away from Usyk, but it did seem that Tyson gave it away a little bit as much as Usyk clawed his way back in. What's your view from the corner?
Yeah, somewhere along those lines, there's some truth. But Tyson, yeah, what do you have to look at the reason why? Now, he was comfortable. He was boxing well up until round 8, round 9. He was quite comfortable boxing and moving, but then he lost concentration in that moment, paid the price. But why? Why lose concentration? Because he wasn't fit enough, because he hadn't sparred, because he couldn't spar, because he had a cut going into the fight. The first fight was rescheduled and there was no sparring done. So you can only do what you've trained to do. And Tyson went into that fight, the biggest fight of his career, against his best opponent with no sparring. So it's just what makes me believe he's going to win the rematch, because he will be much better prepared, better conditioned, and fitter.
Was there no option of postponing the fight a second time?
No, not really, because it wasn't meant. Do you remember there was a 10 million bounty on whoever pulled out of the second fight? So there was a 10 million bounty on his head, so he couldn't pull out. So that was. So there was no sparring really in the camp. There was some moving around, but it's not. It doesn't. Nothing can. You can do all the training in the world. You can do all the weights, all the conditioning, all the fitness, all the running, all the bags, all the pads. But you can do one round of sparring, and you know what I mean, you're fucked. You need to build up sparring condition, boxing condition, and he simply couldn't do that. So it reflected in the fight.
Is there anything you can do ahead of the next camp to ensure that you're not in a similar situation in terms of him not getting cut or anything that's going to prevent him sparring?
Cuts happen all the time, don't they? Cuts do happen. It's part of boxing, But funny, I didn't open in the fight, the cut, and he took big shots. It was his nose. But what can you do? Just wear a big headgear and put on plenty of Vaseline. That's all you can do. But you can never be fully protected from getting cut. Because I've had cuts underneath head guards and stuff, in the forehead and weird places. So, yeah, that's it.
When will you be joining camp for the rematch?
Probably only be involved, because of my commitments with Joseph and Paddy Donovan. I was only out there the week of the fight for the last one. And I probably will be the same this time. Probably go out for the last week or two.
But you said you're confident that Tyson will turn it around.
I'm in touch with him all the time. Talked to Sugar last night. Talked to Tyson yesterday, and I'm very confident he'll turn it around. It's gonna. He knows what it'll mean to. He knows what it'll mean, and even as a story, he's already got a great story, and Danny, you've been with him for years, so the story. I don't have to tell you. But to come back from a loss like this will make it even better.
From your point of view, obviously you're not the head trainer, as you pointed out, that's Sugar Hill, but what element of satisfaction do you get if he turns it around and for his big achievement?
Just because the love I have for him as a man and as a cousin and as a traveller and as a gypsy, he's a gypsy king. When he wins, we all win. He's an inspiration to so many people in our community and outside of our community. And if he, as I said, he's carried the torch for mental health issues. When no one talked about mental health, he was talking about it, and he normalized it for people to talk about that stuff. And this would be another testament to him in terms of the great character that is Tyson Fury. That you don't shy away from a challenge, you come back from your defeat, and you can always win and come back again. So it'll be very satisfying for me, and I'll be just as happy as him when he wins.
Great stuff. Andy, always a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of the week. And yeah, we look forward to hearing your work on the zone.
Live from Riyadh for DAZN Boxing.